Let's talk about SaaS finance today. I don't really have an agenda for this video. We're just going to turn it on. I have some notes. We're going to hit record and we're just going to run with it and see how it goes. I kind of like whiteboarding in general and playing with the whiteboard, and I'm just trying out some different video styles. So hit the like button if you like this video, and make sure you join my newsletter if you want more insights on how to grow personal brands and businesses. If you're new here, my name is Alice. I am a chartered professional accountant. I've actually worked for multiple B2B SaaS companies during my career. So this is how I know all of this stuff. I talk about a bunch of different topics ranging from social media to stuff like this, to personal finance. So hit the like button and let's get into today's video. So what is SaaS? SaaS is all the rage right now. And in today's video, we are going to talk about why it's all the rage and dive deeper into the finance and unit economics of a SaaS business. So at its core, SaaS is software. Basically, the business is providing software to an end user on the internet. SaaS can be B2B or it can be B2C. So an example of B2C SaaS is Dropbox, because any person, any user can sign up for a Dropbox account and use it for personal reasons. And an example of B2B SaaS is Salesforce. So with SaaS and with software in general, the company can either build their own product, their own proprietary product, but it's not uncommon for SaaS companies to actually use the Salesforce platform as a basis for their product. So companies like Salesforce, they have a partner program which allows businesses to enroll in to procure platform licenses for their customers. But more often than not, a lot of SaaS companies build their own product. The reason why SaaS is so attractive as an industry and a business in general is because it is highly scalable with code. So a SaaS business does not need to buy inventory, and typically the margins are much higher than CPG or anything to do with manufacturing of any sort. The average CPG company, consumer packaged goods, has 10% gross margins if they're lucky. Microsoft has 70% gross margins. So right off the bat, you can see why SaaS is such a popular industry right now. Not that there isn't time and place for CPG companies, but it's quite a different business model, right? A business that is doing 10% gross margins like Costco, they're running their operations, their entire business, like cash flow, it's all very different than how Microsoft is doing it. SaaS companies typically have very high margins, usually at least 60% from what I've seen. And the reason why they have high margins is because they don't have to buy inventory and generally speaking, just have lower costs because we are scaling with code. So when it comes to SaaS pricing models, again, the company is giving you access to their software, and that's usually in exchange for a monthly fee. Now, for some bigger B2B SaaS companies, they will usually negotiate contracts with their customers, which we'll get to in a second. But when it comes to pricing models, more often than not, it's subscription-based. Now, there are a couple different ways that this can play out. The first is the freemium model. Freemium model, so you've probably seen this before. You go onto a software company's website and they either offer you a free trial for a certain number of days, or they just have a free tier in itself that allows you to access basic features and then you can upgrade for a fee. So for example, Spotify, the music app, everyone uses Spotify, they have a free version with ads. Zoom has a free version as well, where you get like 30 or 40 minutes free. LinkedIn has a free version. You can upgrade to premium if you like. Slack has a free version. Trello has a free version. So the purpose of this freemium model is to convert a percentage of their users into their paid plan with advanced features. So for example, I personally pay for Zoom Pro and LinkedIn Premium because I need the features in these paid versions to run my business, my agency specifically. So that's the purpose of the freemium model. There's also what we call the usage-based or tier-based pricing model, which the software company will charge customers based on usage levels or credits. Okay, so I use Clay almost every single day in my agency, but that's an example of a SaaS that offers a certain number of credits for your subscription. By the way, guys, if you run a service-based business and you target US customers and you're doing cold email, make sure you set up this. Then the third type of pricing model is contract-based. Okay, contract-based. So SaaS is a really broad industry, right? Like it's any company that sells software to an end user is considered a SaaS company. But when we're talking about B2B SaaS specifically, a lot of these deals are contract based. So instead of just offering a subscription where any person can go and sign up and register, there's a little bit more friction when it comes to closing deals for B2B SaaS companies, and there's usually a sales team involved. So depending on the number of SKUs, product lines, or subsidiaries that the SaaS company has, it could be a pretty big sales team, and each client that the company has usually ends up having one sales rep. There is usually a person that oversees the sales team. There's somebody who oversees revenue operations, or what we call RevOps. And typically with each contract, there is a process to negotiate, and almost all deals are handled by sales. So in these instances, some of the KPIs that the company is tracking are bookings, net new bookings, renewal bookings, upgrades. So apart from helping the sales team, tracking bookings and these booking numbers help the finance team when it comes to planning cash flow, outflows and inflows. Because of the way a SaaS company recognizes revenue, especially B2B SaaS, usually over the period of the contract, bookings are like committed money without recording them as revenue yet. So this is especially the case if the company is collecting money from a contract at the beginning of the contract. So what are the KPIs that a SaaS company cares about or measures? The first one, which most people are familiar with, is MRR, monthly recurring revenue. So MRR is the reason why SaaS companies are so appealing in the first place, because it's trackable, it's measurable, and it provides certainty to management and owners and internal and external stakeholders as to how the company is doing. MRR is basically the biggest, if not one of the biggest measures, growth measures of a SaaS company. And you know, how it's calculated is pretty intuitive, but just a quick example, like 5,000 users at tier 1, at tier 9, 10,000 users, at tier 2, 5,000 users, at tier 3. So how does the math play out here? Just around. So this company is doing 1.5 million in MRR or 18 mil in ARR. So MRR is a KPI that we track and measure every month, right? We have beginning MRR, which is like last month's ending, plus new MRR. So it's like all of the new deals that we signed during the year, plus expansion, minus churn. So any upgrades, so if a customer goes from one tier to another tier, that would be an expansion. And churn, which is basically just like cancellations, downgrades, non-renewals. If you have 100 customers and you lose 2 customers, that's a churn of 2%. But this is the reconciliation to get ending MRR. And typically a finance team will track this every single month. Let's dive deeper into more calculations. So we have ACV, which is the annual contract value. This is more applicable for companies who have contracts in place. But if a customer signs a 2-year contract of $60,000, then its corresponding MRR for that customer would be 60,000 divided by 24 months, 2,500 from that one customer. And then as a result, the annual contract value is 30,000 because it's a $60,000 contract. How do we interpret ACV? If ACV is going up, that's a good thing because it means that the company is signing bigger and bigger contracts with its customers. Then we have LTV, lifetime value. So this just takes into account how long the client is actually staying with you, right? So if an average client spends 10,000 a year and the average client stays on board for at least 3 years, that's $30,000 average LTV. So LTV is based on average. So it's the average client. And ACV is based on a specific client. So LTV, average client spends 10K a year. That's a $30,000 LTV if they stay for 3 years. LTV is one of the most important metrics because this is the KPI that allows you to determine how much you can afford to spend to acquire a new customer profitably and be able to scale the business viably. And that brings me to the next number, which is CAC. And this is customer acquisition cost. So this is just all direct sales and marketing. Right, so if you were looking into a company's GL, you would just take their sales commission account, all directly attributable expenses, sales commissions, marketing expenses, advertisement, and you would just divide that by the number of customer accounts that you have. So if a company spends $100,000 on sales and marketing and they acquired 500 customers, 500 new clients with that spend, that's a $200 customer acquisition cost. So that brings us to our next metric, which is LTV to CAC. LTV to CAC tells a SaaS company whether it's positioned for growth. If your customer acquisition costs are greater than your LTV, that's negative unit economics, meaning that you're losing money to acquire a customer, which means that your business is not positioned for scalable growth. But if it is, let's say 3-to-1 or greater, that's usually a good sign, right? It indicates that you have money to spend to acquire new customers. So let's just say, let's give another example of LTV to CAC. This applies to e-commerce as well. So if a e-commerce company spends 10K on ads and they acquire 100 customers, they acquire 1,000 customers, the average revenue per each customer is $50, and it costs them $30, cost of goods sold, to fulfill that order. And the customer on average retains 75% of its customers year over year. The contribution margin is 50 minus 30, which is 20. The LTV is 20 over 1 minus 0.75, which is $80. CAC is 10,000. $50 is selling price, not CAC. The actual CAC is $10. But in this scenario, the LTV to CAC is 80 to 10, or basically 8 times. And so what that means is that because for every dollar that they spend on sales and marketing, they're able to get 8 times of that back. Now with CAC, sales and marketing spend, we also want to look at the payback period, which is how many months it takes to recover those acquisition costs for sales and marketing, which is important for cash flow management because usually the spend is spent up front, but the revenue from the customer is realized over time, right? So your payback period is pretty much one of the best ways to measure the capital efficiency of your business because it indicates how much cash flow you're gonna need to keep growing profitably. If you can recover your CAC in less than 12 months, that's excellent. If your payback period is too long, then it usually means that your customers are churning before you have a chance to pay back their acquisition cost, which either means that you need to cut back on your spend with better marketing and sales strategies or work on retaining your customers for a longer period so that their retention is higher. And then speaking of retention, we also have churn. Churn can be seen in terms of units, so how many customers you've lost over your total number of customers. So if you lose 1 customer and you have 100 customers, that's a 1% churn. But you can also see churn in dollar value too, which is basically just like canceled deals over beginning ARR. So if you had $10,000 in canceled deals and your beginning ARR was 100,000, that's a 10% churn. That's really, really high, but just for math's sakes. A couple more KPIs. These are not SaaS specific KPIs, but pretty much every business tracks these, especially at the startup stage, or just any business in general, is gross margin, right? So that's just revenue minus cost of goods sold. For SaaS specifically, a good gross margin is usually at least 60% or greater. That's just the industry standard. Cash runway, this is more for cash management than anything, but it's basically how long a business can operate before running out of cash. As a general benchmark and rule of thumb for all startups or just companies in general, 12 months is always a good benchmark, okay? So if you have OpEx of 100 grand monthly, that includes salaries, of course, then, it's good to have at least $1 million in cash. And that way, you're always protecting the downside and you can mitigate risks as they come along. The more mature a company is, the longer this should be. In a very small, bootstrapped, small business, solopreneur, it's probably less than 12 months. But as a general practice, like 12 months of cash is always a good benchmark. And then monthly burn. Monthly burn is just if the company is not cash flow positive or they are not profitable yet. Knowing your monthly burn, which is how much month you're burning through each month, is good cash flow practice for keeping the business viable. But these are metrics that any startup or any business should track. I mean, gross margin, every business tracks that, right? But cash runway and monthly burn specifically for startups and newer businesses. If you like this video today, you're gonna like my other video. I'll leave it up top here. It's another whiteboard style video where I explain the business cash cycle, which applies to basically all industries and all businesses. I'll leave a link up top there. You're gonna love it. Let me know down in the comments below whether you have any questions about SaaS, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until next time.